Hey everyone, hope we're doing good. We are going to look at our first lesson in our notes today. So you want to make sure that you have that spiral notebook with you because you are going to have this out and you're going to be taking notes along with me today. So make sure this is out. I have my spiral notebook out on the screen, obviously, and we're going to go through our first lesson of notes today. I just want to kind of go through a little bit of how you should be labeling your notes. So in your notebook, you always want to make sure that you put the date of some sort. Okay, so I'm just going to write date, but whatever day that you are doing this, you should probably put the date somewhere. And then we're also going to write a title. So today's title is operations. And I'm going to try really hard not to let my pen get all sloppy like I told you it was going to, right? Operations with rational numbers. So rational There goes the pen. See it starting to slow down on me? Ugh, it's the worst. I'm telling you. Holy cow. Okay, so rational numbers. There we go. That's an S. Alrighty, we made it. We survived. So operations with rational numbers. And so the first thing that comes up is, well, what is a rational number, right? Operation. Let's start with operations. Operations is we're just talking about adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, taking the square root, things like that. Those are all considered operations. Rational numbers are pretty much any number. You can have whole numbers. You can have positive, negative, zero. You can have decimals. You can have fractions. So it's pretty much any number out there. There are some exceptions that you will get to when you take Algebra 2. But for this right now, it's basically just any number. It can be a decimal. It can be a fraction. It can be a whole number. It can be zero. It can be positive or negative. So we're just going to jump right in just because I want to make sure that I respect your time on the video. So we're going to start with addition. So just a quick reminder, everything that we do on this, hopefully you know and have seen before, and it's just going to be a quick reminder, okay? So addition. So basically, if I'm adding two numbers, what do I do, right? Well, if the two numbers have, that's supposed to be an S, sorry, have the same sign, come on now. Okay, so like if they're both positive or if they're both negative, okay, so what is, right? We're going to add, oh, this is going to be fun. This is what I mean by you might want to watch it in like double time because my pen starts to get really, really bad and I can do better than that. So, it just starts to get super gnarly. I can hear my computer starting to overheat. Okay, so we're going to add, I wonder if I can type. Hold on, we're going to try something real quick. Oh, I did not mean to do that. That's okay. Let's try this real quick. Can I do that? I don't think so. Okay. It was a good thought, right? Okay. So we're under addition, right? Same sign. Same sign. We're going to add the absolute value, the absolute value, and we'll review what that is as well, so don't worry, of the numbers. So the numbers. So what this means is like, okay, if they're both positive, then I'm just gonna go ahead and add them. Like it's not gonna be anything like super special here, okay? Holy cow. This is like the worst I've ever seen it, okay? Add the absolute value of the numbers. So you do that first, and then after you've done that, you keep the sign. Keep the sign. So meaning I'm going to add the numbers together, and if they're both negative, then the answer will be negative. If they're both positive, then the answer will be positive. So let me show you what I mean by that. So if I add negative 65, this is just an example to show you what I'm talking about, plus negative 48, okay, I'm going to add 65. So the absolute value of negative 65 is 65, plus the absolute value of 48 is, of negative 48 is 48. So I add those together, which gives me 113. And since they both were negative, then it's going to be negative 113. So hopefully that makes sense. You just add the numbers together, and then since these were both negative, my answer is going to stay negative. Let's move myself up here. If both the answers are positive, then it's going to stay positive. So that's if it's the same sign. If we have a different sign, for some reason numbers are okay, it just doesn't like letters, I don't know. Okay, so different signs. Sorry, not that. Different signs. Okay, so if we have different signs, like one's positive and one's negative, what we're going to do is we're going to subtract So we're going to subtract the larger, and I'm going to abbreviate here, larger number. So, right, we can use the pound symbol for a number. So subtract the larger number and smaller number. So the larger number minus the smaller number, ignoring signs. So ignoring whether it's positive or negative. Okay, so we're going to subtract the larger number and the smaller number. And then we're going to keep the sign. Keep the sign of the larger number. So whatever the larger number is, sign of, whatever sign the larger number is, that's what sign you're going to keep. So this is just a nice little review. I'm fully confident in your ability to add and subtract numbers, okay? It's just a nice little, oh God, larger number. Just a nice little review of what we're looking at. So let's do like 27 plus, right, because we're still in addition, negative 53. This is the same thing as 27 minus 53. When you add a negative like the plus and minus, it's just the same thing as minus. Okay, so it should be nice and easy there. And then I asked myself, what's the larger number, 27 or 53? Even though 53 is negative, right, if I ignore the negative, 53 is larger. So I'm going to take 53 and I'm going to subtract 27, which gets me 26. 26. Okay, now I have to ask my question, was the larger number positive or was the larger number negative? In this case, the larger number was negative, so it's going to be a negative 26. So that's just a quick review on addition, right? How do we add things with the same sign? How do we add things with a different sign? So I'm going to go ahead and clear this. So if you're not ready, just make sure you hit pause. Remember, you can watch this video as many times as you want, whatever speed you need to watch it at. So I'm going to clear this, and I'm actually going to scroll down a little bit just so we get some more writing room. And then now we're going to look at subtraction. Okay, so we actually already just talked about subtraction, right? We just did it in that last example. So I'm just going to show you some examples here of what we're looking at when we subtract. So 48 minus negative 22. So if I have a positive number minus a negative number, hopefully we remember that when I have this double negative here, it actually turns to positive. So it's actually adding. So it's actually 48 plus 22 because these two negatives become positive, which gives me 70. And that would be my answer. If I'm subtracting two negative numbers, so a negative number minus a positive number, right? So this is negative 7 minus positive 2. So negative 7 minus 2. It's here, I'll write it like this. So it's like the same thing as negative 7 plus negative 2. And now we know how to do the addition because we just did it up above, right? So I add these numbers together, ignoring the negative. So 7 plus 2 is 9. And then since both numbers were negative, it will be negative 9. And then the last one is a negative number, so negative 6 minus another negative number. Okay, so negative 6 minus a negative number. Again, I have negative 6, but look, I also have a double negative here. So negative 6, those two negatives turn to positive, so it becomes plus 5. And now, this is like almost like the same thing as subtraction, right? 6 minus 5 is 1, and since the highest number is negative, it's going to be negative 1. All right, so hopefully that's making sense. We're going to go on to multiplication. So multiplication, look, my pen's working again. Probably just jinxed it, but that's okay. Multiplication. So if you are multiplying things with the same sign, so that's what we're going to start with, same sign. Okay, so if you're multiplying two positive numbers together or two negative numbers together, your answer is going to be positive. So you're going to get a positive, that was short-lived, huh? Now pin's jumping again. A positive answer. That says answer. Sorry. Okay, so if I have like -3 times -8, right? A negative times a negative is a positive. 3 times 8 is 24. So I'm going to get positive 24. Same thing if I multiply two positive numbers together, like 2 times 7, a positive times a positive is a positive. So I'm going to get 14. Positive 14. Okay, if I have different signs, alrighty, we can get this to work. Okay, so different signs, meaning I'm multiplying a positive number and a negative number. That's going to give me a negative answer. So negative answer. So for example, 4, so positive 4 times a negative 9. Since it's a positive and a negative, I'm going to get a negative, and then 4 times 9 is 36. Same thing if the negative's in front, so like -3 times 10. Positive times negative is negative, and then 3 times 10 is 30. So hopefully that's good. Just a nice little review here. And we are going to move on to division, which is the last one. So division. Okay, so division is nice. It's the same rules as multiplication. Same rules as multiplication. So if you divide two positive numbers, it's positive. If you divide two negative numbers, it's positive. If you divide a positive number and a negative number, it's negative. The only thing that I want to show you here is that where you place the negative in a fraction when we're talking about division, because right, a fraction is division. So where you put the negative sign doesn't matter. So if the negative is on top, so like -a over b, for example, that's on top, the negative. That is actually the same thing as if the negative's on bottom. It's the exact same thing. It doesn't matter. And that is actually the same thing as if the negative is just out front. So all of these things are exactly the same. It doesn't matter where that negative goes. Personal preference, like again, personal preference, this does not mean it has to be your preference, but my preference is this one. I usually write the negative on the top. But again, you can write it like this, or you can write it like this. So that's just a quick review on all of the different operation rules. What we're going to do now is we're going to define absolute value really quickly, and then we're going to do 3 examples, and then we're done. Okay, so we're going to define absolute value. Sorry, we had to wait for that announcement to get over. Okay, so absolute value is what we're going to define here. Okay, so the actual definition of the absolute value is the distance distance, I can spell, from 0 okay, the distance from 0 on a number line. So that's actually why absolute value is always positive, right? I think we kind of know absolute value always makes it positive, but like why? Okay, because we're talking about distance. So like I'm gonna draw a number line. That was a lot more straight than I thought it was gonna be, so that's exciting. 0, 1, 2, 3. Then we go negatives, -1, -2, -3. So let's look at like the absolute value of -3, just as an example, right? So here's -3 right here. Maybe I'll change the color so we can, okay. So here's -3, and I'm interested in what is this distance, right? How many units from 0 to -3? And so the answer is 3 units, right? And when I count, right, there's 1 unit, 2 unit, 3 units. So it's 3. So distance can never be negative, right? Even if you're like going backwards, you never say like, oh, I went -8 miles to school today. Distance is always positive. So the distance from 0 to -3 is 3 units. So hopefully that is making sense why it's always positive. Same thing with like if I take the absolute value of 4. So these little bars, those are the absolute value bars, right? So 4 is out here. What is the distance from 0 to 4? Well, it's 4 units. So that's why it's positive. I do want to show you a couple things here. So I'm going to kind of draw a little, before we get started on examples, I want to show you like some exceptions going on. So if I have negative absolute value of -3, so I want to talk about this real quick. You cannot distribute this negative at all, okay? So this is not the same thing as -3 with a parenthesis, right? Because if I have this with parentheses instead of absolute value bars, then I have a negative and a negative, which we know becomes a positive. That is not the same thing. You cannot do that with absolute value. So what you have to do with absolute value is this negative comes down, it just follows. And then you have to ask yourself, what is the absolute value of -3? Well, it's 3. We just did it up here. And so my answer actually still ends up being negative because of this negative that's out front. So that's really important to note, is that you have to take the absolute value first, and then this negative also comes down. The other thing that I want to show you, let's say I have like 3 times the absolute value of 2 plus x. You cannot distribute this 3 into the parentheses or into the absolute values like you could if they were parentheses. So you cannot, so that means is not equal to, you cannot multiply it out to get 6 plus 3x. Okay, it doesn't work. You can't do it. No way. Okay. So that's absolute value. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do 3 separate examples, and then we're going to be done. So not too bad here. So my first example is I want to simplify. Simplify, there we go. -3 minus -5 minus 9. Holy moly, lots of negatives going on, right? The first thing that I see is this double negative right here. And so I'm going to go ahead and change that to positive. So negative 3 plus 5 minus 9. Okay, so I got rid of the double negatives. Now I'm just going to go from left to right. Negative 3 plus 5 is 2. And that gives me 2 minus 9. And then 2 minus 9 is negative 7. So there's my answer right there. Okay. Nice and easy. Next example. I want to simplify. Holy cow, sorry, ma'am. Okay, so we're going to simplify 2 times the absolute value of negative 7 times negative 8. So the reason that I know that this is all multiplication is there's no plus or minus between the 2 and the absolute value bars. So that tells me we're multiplying. Also, there's no plus or minus between the absolute values and the parentheses. So that also tells me we're multiplying. So I have to simplify a couple of things here. I have to simplify my absolute value first. So when I do that, I have 2. After you simplify an absolute value, it turns to parentheses. So once you take the absolute value of negative 7, which is positive 7, it just turns to parentheses. And then I have the negative 8 still. So I'm just multiplying all these numbers. Okay, now I'm going to go left to right. 2 times 7 is 14. So I have 14 times negative 8. Positive times negative is negative. And 14 times negative 8 is 112. And that's it. And we box our answer. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and clear this so that we can do our last example. Again, if that went too fast or something, go back and watch it. Hit pause. Do whatever you need to do. But I'm going to clear this so that we can do our last example. Last example is to simplify negative, parenthesis, negative 36 divided by negative 3. Whoa, lots of negatives, right? Remember that in our order of operations, we always want to do our groupings first. So I'm going to look in the parentheses first. Okay, so negative, I automatically see a negative over a negative. Well, I know that a negative divided by a negative is positive. So I can change these numbers back to positive. So that's good. It's exciting. And then I can simplify. So that negative is still there. 36 divided by 3 is 12. Okay. And then since there's no like negative to look at, right? It just becomes negative 12. So that's it. Okay, so if these notes didn't make sense or if you have any questions, make sure you reach out, let me know right away, right? Like what we talked about, make sure you let me know right away so that we can work through it. So just make sure that you check Google Classroom to see what the assignment is for this. Hopefully you followed along with the notes well, and I will see you on next video. Bye.